Right now, if you're on SSDI, this isn't just another headline scrolling past your screen. This is about you, your household, your bills stacked on the table, and the choices you're being forced to make every single month. Groceries cost more. Rent keeps climbing. Medical expenses never stop. And yet your SSDI check still feels like it belongs to a different economy, one that no longer exists. That's why millions of Americans are searching the same phrase right now. Is there a $2,000 stimulus check coming for SSDI? This question isn't coming from greed. It's coming from pressure. It's coming from fear. It's coming from families who've already cut everything they can cut and still come up short. And that's exactly why this conversation has exploded across Washington, advocacy groups, and online forums. Because for people living with disabilities, inflation doesn't hit softly, it hits harder and longer. Today's video is about the $2,000 SSDI stimulus check update that Americans have been demanding, asking for, and pushing into the spotlight. Not rumors, not hype, real discussions, real pressure, and real consequences for your financial future. And here's the important part. What happens next could directly affect your wallet, not months from now, but sooner than most people realize. Stay with me, because what you'll hear in the next sections explains why this idea isn't random, why it's gaining traction now, and why SSDI recipients are at the center of this fight. This is not just news. This is your reality. Why SSDI recipients are demanding a $2,000 stimulus check. The push for a $2,000 SSDI stimulus check didn't come out of nowhere. It was born out of years of financial strain that finally reached a breaking point. SSDI beneficiaries are not choosing to live on limited income. Disabilities don't pause for inflation, and medical costs don't negotiate. Yet SSDI payments often fall far below what it actually costs to survive in today's America. For many recipients, the monthly check barely covers rent, leaving food, utilities, transportation, and healthcare to fight over what's left. That's why disability advocates have been flooding lawmakers with one clear message. A one-time stimulus payment could provide immediate relief where long-term fixes move too slowly. The $2,000 figure isn't random either. It reflects the size of previous emergency payments that helped Americans stabilize during economic crises. SSDI recipients watch those payments help others while they themselves remained financially fragile. Now, with inflation still squeezing essentials, the call has grown louder. If emergency aid can exist, why not include people with disabilities first? This isn't about luxury spending. It's about catching up on rent, paying down medical debt, fixing a car needed for appointments, or simply breathing for a moment without financial panic. That's why lawmakers are feeling pressure. Not from one group, but from millions of Americans who vote, advocate, and speak up. And here's the key. When pressure becomes organized and visible, it starts to change conversations behind closed doors. What "as requested" really means in Washington. When you hear the phrase "as requested" tied to a stimulus update, it matters. In Washington, that wording signals that the idea didn't originate from politicians, it came from the public. SSDI recipients, caregivers, and advocacy organizations have formally requested relief measures through petitions, public comments, and direct outreach to lawmakers. These requests are being logged, reviewed, and discussed. That doesn't mean approval has happened, but it does mean the issue is officially on the radar. Lawmakers track what constituents ask for most often, especially when those requests align with economic data showing financial hardship. What's different now is the timing. With cost of living adjustments failing to keep pace with real expenses, SSDI recipients are being cited as one of the most economically vulnerable groups in America. That reality gives weight to stimulus discussions tied specifically to disability benefits. As requested also means lawmakers know people are watching. Ignoring these requests has political consequences. Addressing them, even through proposals or studies, signals responsiveness. And once an idea enters formal discussion, it gains momentum faster than people expect. This is why staying informed matters. The process doesn't happen overnight, but when movement starts, it can accelerate quickly. Is a $2,000 SSDI stimulus check approved? Here's the truth. Let's be absolutely clear, because your trust matters. There is no confirmed approval yet for a $2,000 SSDI stimulus check. Anyone claiming checks are already guaranteed is misleading you. But here's what is happening and why it matters. Discussions are underway, proposals are being drafted, advocacy groups are pushing targeted relief rather than broad programs that overlook disability recipients, and economic data continues to show SSDI households under extreme financial pressure. In Washington, big changes rarely start with an announcement. They start with quiet conversations, draft language, and public testing of ideas. That's exactly where this stands right now. The idea exists, the demand exists, and the justification exists. The mistake many people make is tuning out before decisions are finalized. That's how opportunities slip away. Historically, stimulus payments moved fastest when public awareness stayed high and pressure remained constant. This is why watching updates like this isn't optional, it's essential. How a $2,000 payment could affect your SSDI benefits. One of the biggest questions viewers ask is whether a stimulus payment would reduce SSDI benefits or cause eligibility problems. That concern is valid, and it's part of why advocates are pushing for clear protections. Historically, stimulus payments have been structured as non-countable income, meaning they did not reduce benefits or trigger penalties. That precedent is shaping current discussions. Any SSDI-specific relief would likely follow similar safeguards, ensuring recipients aren't punished for receiving help. The goal is relief, not risk. Lawmakers understand that SSDI recipients already navigate strict rules. Adding confusion would defeat the purpose. That's why advocates are emphasizing simple delivery methods tied directly to Social Security records. If relief moves forward, clarity will be critical, and updates will matter more than ever. Why timing matters more than ever. Right now, timing can make or break financial relief. Inflation hasn't paused, medical costs haven't slowed, and SSDI recipients can't delay expenses while waiting for policy debates. That urgency is why this conversation is happening now, not years from now. Economic pressure accelerates decision-making. When lawmakers see data showing disability households falling further behind, it creates urgency. That urgency is what turns requests into action. This window matters. Missing it could mean waiting years for another opportunity. Who benefits most if this moves forward? This potential stimulus isn't just about individuals. It affects families, caregivers, and entire communities. SSDI recipients often support households, not just themselves. Relief here ripples outward, stabilizing housing, healthcare access, and local economies. That's why this issue resonates beyond disability circles. It's about economic fairness and stability. What you should be doing right now. Staying informed is step 1. Avoid clickbait. Follow credible updates. Make sure your Social Security information is accurate and up to date. If action windows open, preparation will matter. Silence helps no one. Awareness changes outcomes. What could happen next? And why it could move fast. Once proposals gain traction, timelines can shorten quickly. What feels distant today can become urgent tomorrow. That's how stimulus policy has worked before, and it can happen again. Momentum is building. Don't underestimate it. The silent struggles people on SSDI rarely talk about. There's a side of life on SSDI that almost never makes it into headlines, and it's the part that hits you the hardest when the camera is off and the bills are due. It's the constant mental math, the quiet anxiety at the grocery store, the moment you check your bank balance before answering a phone call because you're afraid it's another bill collector. This is the reality millions of Americans live every day while trying to manage a disability at the same time. People assume SSDI means stability, but you know the truth. One unexpected expense, a prescription change, a medical device repair, a rent increase, can throw your entire month into chaos. There's no emergency fund, there's no cushion. And when people talk about budgeting better, it feels disconnected from reality because you've already trimmed everything that can be trimmed. What's left is survival. That's why the conversation around a $2,000 SSDI stimulus check has become emotional, not theoretical. This isn't about abstract policy. It's about whether you can replace worn-out shoes, keep the lights on, or avoid skipping meals so your medication lasts longer. These are decisions no one should have to make in one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And here's the part that often gets overlooked. Financial stress worsens health outcomes. When you're constantly worried about money, symptoms flare. Recovery slows, mental health suffers. That means the cost of ignoring SSDI recipients doesn't disappear. It just shows up later in hospitals, emergency rooms, and long-term care systems. That's why advocates argue this isn't extra spending, it's preventative support. A one-time payment can reduce cascading crises that cost far more down the line, and lawmakers are starting to hear that argument more clearly than ever before. Why this issue is resonating with Americans beyond SSDI. What's interesting right now is that the push for SSDI relief isn't isolated anymore. Americans who aren't on disability are paying attention too. And that matters. Families see parents, siblings, friends, and neighbors struggling. Caregivers see firsthand how thin the margin really is. And voters are starting to ask a broader question. If people with disabilities can't survive on existing benefits, what does that say about the system as a whole? This wider awareness is changing the tone of the conversation. It's no longer framed as a niche issue. It's being discussed as part of a larger economic picture, where safety nets are failing to keep up with real life. When inflation hits, everyone feels it, but those with fixed incomes feel it first and hardest. That reality creates empathy, and empathy drives political momentum. Social media has amplified these stories. Real people sharing real struggles, not statistics, experiences. And once those stories circulate, it becomes much harder for decision makers to dismiss them as numbers on a spreadsheet. Visibility creates accountability. This is also why the phrase, as requested, carries weight. It signals that this idea isn't being forced onto the public. It's being pulled forward by it. That distinction matters in policy discussions because it changes who owns the narrative. When voters feel ownership, they stay engaged longer, and engagement is what sustains pressure. Momentum doesn't come from one viral moment. It comes from sustained attention. And right now, attention is exactly what this issue has. What history tells us about how fast things can change. If there's one lesson history teaches about stimulus and emergency relief, it's this. Things can feel impossible right up until they suddenly aren't. Major financial relief programs in the past often went from unlikely to urgent in a matter of weeks when conditions aligned. Economic pressure, public demand, and political timing don't move in straight lines, but when they intersect, change can happen fast. Many Americans remember how quickly past stimulus programs moved once momentum hit a tipping point. Before that moment, discussions sounded exactly like this. Debates, uncertainty, skepticism. Then suddenly, timelines shortened, systems activated, payments rolled out. That doesn't mean outcomes are guaranteed, but it does mean dismissing the possibility too early is a mistake. SSDI recipients who stay informed are better positioned than those who tune out. Awareness gives you options. It gives you time to prepare mentally and financially, and it protects you from misinformation that spreads fastest when people are desperate. Right now, we're in the phase where attention and pressure still matter. Every conversation, every view, every share keeps this issue alive. That's why following credible updates isn't just passive consumption, it's participation. Because when decisions are finally made, they don't pause to catch people up. They move forward, and the people who benefit most are the ones who stayed engaged from the beginning. If this matters to you, staying connected matters. Updates matter. And following channels that track this information could directly affect your financial future. Hope grows when people stay informed. Urgency grows when people pay attention, and change happens when Americans refuse to be invisible. Stay ready, stay informed, and stay with us for the updates that could impact your life, your family, and your wallet.